chapter 32, the request of the tribes of Reuben and Gad. Now, the whole premise was when they got to the promised land, then they could go across the Jordan and they'd be in the promised land that God promised Moses. Now, if you go back to Abraham's time, he promised them even further. You go back and said from here to here and here to here. And it's even further than it is now. It's not saying that that's what, they're in here, he's talking about exactly what he's going to give Moses, what they need to have. Now, later on, they're going to be over, when the Lord comes back, they're going to be over everything pretty much. So, with us, we'll be part of it too. All of us will be helping somehow. Verse 32, chapter 32, verses 1 through 5. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad, that's two of the tribes, had very great multitude of livestock. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed the region was a place for livestock, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Atroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Eliash, Sheba, Nebo, and Beon, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel, is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. Therefore they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan. Okay? Now, just taking that as it is, it sounds okay. Said it, it's a good land. It's a lot of pasture land. It's kind of in the valley there. So a lot of greenery, and they saw the people of the Midianites and the Moabites. That's what they had. They had a lot of cattle, a lot of livestock, cattle and sheep and goats and all that. But the promise was to go to the promised land. And that's what got Moses and God stirred up a little bit, because you could take it two different ways. All right, we'll see which reason it's going to go over. It says, for some 400 years the tribe of Israel longed to go over the Jordan into the promised land. Now it seemed that these two tribes were content to come short of crossing the Jordan and seemed to be satisfied with living or settling for less. So that kind of seems like, something that they wouldn't want to do. Iris, the next one at the top of page 2.
Moses reacts to the request of the tribes of Reuben and Gad. And Moses said to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war while you sit here? Now why will you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord has given them?
Okay. So we have here what they're saying. Moses was thinking that they would say, we've got this place and we don't want to go anywhere else. Now, remember from last week, they took 1,000 from each tribe. So Gad and Reuben was a part of that group that helped conquer all the people that was in this area. But they had the other tribes there too, the other 10 tribes. So what Moses thought when they told them that was evidently they're satisfied with what they got, and they didn't want to go over to Jordan and didn't want to fight anymore, which is kind of gets him riled up a little bit. He doesn't want to, he wants to tell them that that's not right. They need to go ahead and go on, but we'll see that here in the next. You want to read 8 through 15, at the bottom of page 2?
Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Escol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which the Lord has given them. So the Lord's anger was aroused on that day, and he swore an oath, saying, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt from 20 years old and above shall see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. So the Lord's anger was aroused against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years, until all the generation of that had got done evil in that sight of the Lord was gone. And look, you have risen in your father's place a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the furious anger of the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will once again lead them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all these people.
Okay. They were there in the very same place that they had been 40 years ago. Almost 40. About a year in the wilderness. But they came there, and he told their fathers, go up and conquer the land. And they said, no, let's send some spies over. So he's looking at it from his point of view. You're doing the same things as your father did. You don't want to go over the land because you say it's going to be tough, it will be hard, and the other tribes are going to look upon you and say you're backing out. And evidently that's kind of what happened in the first place, because they had Joshua and Caleb saying, yeah, let's go up, but they had 10 other tribes and they backed off. They wouldn't go. So he's saying, don't you remember what the Lord did back then, and you wandered in the wilderness for 40 years? So that's what he's telling them, trying to remind them, because they didn't wholly follow him. Up until then, whenever the cloud moved, they moved with it. Okay? But now, the cloud's not moving, they're staying there, but they want to go on ahead. The cloud's going to go away. Okay? For 40 years, it led them back and forth in the fire by night. But when he tells them to go across the promised land, they're not going to have that reassurance that cloud's there that's leading them all these things. And they won't get the manna, they won't get the water. They're going to have to start living on their own. Okay, for 40 years, they've lived for what God's done to them or given to them. Okay. The next page on 16 says, then they came near to him and said, we will build our sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones will dwell in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this eastern side of the Jordan. So whether they either had a change of heart or they said, no, you misunderstand, we don't know exactly what it was, but they said, no, we'll go with you. Now they're going to leave some people there. They're going to leave the children and the women and the old people and enough people there to guard and take care of their land, okay, against any people that try to reprise against them. But I think it says in one of the commentaries I read, they had like 20,000 that would be able to go with them from Gad and Reuben, and it may have been more than that. I'd have to go back and look. That would be with them the entire time until they conquered all of Canaan, what they had for the land of Canaan. So they think about that, and Okay, that sounds better. He just said, well, maybe you misunderstood them or they come across wrong. I don't know. Brother Everson, the bottom of that page.
Then Moses said to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourself before the Lord for the war, and all your armed men cross over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then afterwards you may return and be blameless before the Lord and before Israel. And this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you do not do so, then take note, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sins will find you out. Build cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep, and do what has proceeded out of thy mouth.
Okay.
And if you do these things, if you do as they said, then they would. Oh,
Yeah, that's just part of the commentary. It's an understanding. He's coming to an understanding. Okay, if you do that, follow what we've done, everything you said you're going to do. Okay, that'll be fine, and you can inherit this land. If you don't do it, be aware. That's going to be sinning. It's going to be one of those things that you said you'd do. What did we talk about just a couple weeks ago? An oath. Don't enter into an oath unless you're going to make sure on it. Well, that's what he's trying to tell them to do. Don't, take note that they have sinned. And it says your sin will find you out. So many times that's what in raising kids and raising grandkids and everything, you usually don't have to ask too many questions when they start coming in and say, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, and you said, oh, and then the story changes, and then the story changes, and then the story changes, and then they start confessing. It's one of those things that's kind of what we do too. If we're not careful, we have to be sure that we're not part of that, trying to, pull the wool over somebody's eyes. Iris, the next one.
So Moses gave commands concerning
Oh,
them
there's one in the
to
middle.
Eleazar, the priest of.
There's one in the middle.
One.
Yeah, go up above that one.
And the children of God. Am I on the right one?
Yeah.
And the children of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our livestock will be there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants will cross over, every man armed for war, before the Lord to battle, just as my Lord says.
So they're making an agreement that's what low battery. They were making an agreement with them that they would go ahead and do as they said. It's basically a contract. You do this. The Lord said, if you do this, then okay, you can have this land. See, in here it's kind of funny. You never hear Moses going back and asking the Lord if this is okay. I just kind of tried to look at it several times in there, and I don't know if it is or not. I mean, Moses said it was okay, and evidently he talked to the Lord because he said this is what the Lord said, but we don't know, like any other places, many of the other places it said, this is what the Lord said, or that he went and talked to God about it. But it is a good thing he said this and they agreed to it, because here it's saying, the one before it said, if you do this thing before the Lord, okay, so he's telling them that that's what it is, and then they say, yes, we will do that. So they're agreeing to this, and once the agreement's settled, then they go on. So, and you got to remember, Moses is getting ready to die. Okay, he's not going to cross over, but in the next few verses, he's going to tell them, and I'll go ahead and read it because it's a long one, but he's going to tell them you guys remember this, okay? Put this down, write this down. It says, so Moses gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moses said to them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben cross over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before the Lord, and the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead as a possession. But if they do not cross over armed with you, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. Then the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as the Lord said to your servants, so we will do. We will cross over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us on this side of the Jordan. That's the east side. So Moses gave to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, and the kingdom of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with its cities within the borders, the cities of the surrounding country. And the children of Gad built Dibon, Ataroth, and Aroer, and Atorah, and Shophan, and Jazer, and Jogbeah, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fortified cities, and folds for their sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon, and Eliah, and Kirjathim, Nebo, and Baal Meon, their names being changed, and Shibmah, and they gave other names to the cities which they built. And the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it and dispossessed the Amorites who were in it. So Moses gave Gilead to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt in it. And also Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took its small towns and called them Havoth Jair. Then Nobah went and took Kenath and its villages, and he called it Nobah after his own name. So here, right at the end, Moses is telling Eleazar, the priest, the leaders of the tribes, and Joshua, that this is okay, this will be all right. They need to do this, and there'll be this land. If they don't, then they moved over. And I don't quite understand that, because it's like, well, if they conquered that land, but they wasn't going to stay there. So to me, I kind of think that's okay to keep people there, to keep it occupied, so they won't come upon from the other side. But God in his reasoning wanted them to be over there. So these people, they went ahead and they took these villages and they started repairing them. They fought and broke them down as they was, conquering them. Now they're going to build them back up. The people are gone. Remember last time they wiped all the men out, wiped all the boys out, and kept just the young girls, the young women, and that's all they took. So all the people are basically gone from this area. So they're just going to take it over. So they named the cities that they're going to take. Gad took some, and Reuben took others. And then, for some reason, Manasseh got involved in this, the half-tribe of Manasseh. And they call it a half-tribe, and I always wondered if it's because Joseph was one of the 12.
You're hitting on what I was going to ask a
Yeah.
question on.
And I don't know if because they left Levi out, they went ahead and added his two sons, Joseph, Manasseh, and whatever the other one's name was, Ephraim. That's the only thing I could think that why they called it a half tribe. But you go back and look, and there's another. It named at least two of the families of Manasseh here, and I don't know if they're just. It's not really half a tribe. It's it's one of the half tribes. And I think that's what it is. Ephraim and Manasseh was a half
That's a
tribe.
You sure just don't have the numbers.
I don't think so. I think they started calling them because they named the people by the names of Benjamin and Judah and Levi. These are the tribes. But then when it come time to start doing things, he left Levi out. He's not going to fight all of his family, okay, because they're priests. Well, then to take part of that, they did a lot of things, and I never really thought about that. But
I was thinking about that when that said half.
Yeah.
Does that mean that his other son? Because I've always thought about it. If they go by that, that means there's 13 tribes.
Right, right.
And when it always talks, it talks about
12 tribes, and I think that's what it means, because Joseph would have been a tribe, but they split it into, they made it where it came, and why they did that, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I don't either.
That's different, but I have to ask a Jewish person, I guess, about that, why that actually happened. I'm sure there's some reasons. But there are other families of Manasseh and Ephraim that's going to be on the east side. I know that too. I've seen some of the maps. When I'm looking at the maps, okay, half of the tribes over there and half the tribes over here. But I don't think that's what it means. So, anyway. That's exactly right.
Time.
Yeah, yeah. All right, now we're going on to 33.
Okay.
Chapter 33.
They departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day.
Oh, go up to one above.
Okay. These are the journeys of the children of Israel who went out to the land of Egypt by their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. Now Moses wrote down the starting point of their journey at the command of the Lord, and these are the journeys according to their starting points.
Okay. Now that's one thing. It's the starting points. What this chapter is going to do.
But did they do that?
Yeah, it's going to summarize the last 40 years. This chapter summarizes all the places they went. Okay, you went on your vacation. Every day you tell me where you went, where you stayed, the hotel you stayed in, and all this stuff. That's what they're doing here. They're telling them all these. So we're going to have a bunch of names and a bunch of places that you're not going to know.
And that's the way to sustain. I mean,
It's to remember. It's to remind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reminder and history.
It's a reminder. It's a reminder. The first few is easy. There's just a few towns that they go to, and then they're ready to go over to the Jordan. And oops, we had a misfire. So now we got to wander around 40 years, and it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth till they come back to the same place that they wound up at.
Talk about going in circles.
They did. They basically did. So it says they departed from Ramses, which is in Egypt, in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the day after the Passover. The children of Israel went out with boldness in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians were bearing all their firstborn, whom the Lord had killed among them. Also their gods, the Lord had executed judgments. It's going all the way back to the very first, when they were still in Egypt. And the last, the 10th plague, was the firstborn of everybody, everyone, men, children, women, their firstborn, and the cattle and everything else. The firstborn that all they had, and they were burying them. So there was no way the Egyptian people, they were in mourning. And Pharaoh got up and he just said, yep, go, get out of here. So they did, and it talked about the Lord executed judgments on them. Well, that was the other plagues, the 9 plagues that they had, plus the 10th one, in, not letting them go. Okay, Brother Epson, you want to read the next one?
Then the children of Israel moved from Ramses and camped at Succoth.
Mm-hmm.
And they parted from Succoth and camped at Ethan, which is on the edge of the wilderness. And they moved from Ethan and turned back to Pi Harith, which is east of Bel Zippor, and they camped near Magal. And they departed from Harath and passed through the midst of the sea in the wilderness and went 3 days' journey into the wilderness of Ethan and camped at Moriah, and they moved from Moriah east to Elim. Elim was 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there. And they moved from Elim and camped at the Red Sea, and they moved from the Red Sea and camped in the wilderness of Sin. And then they journeyed from the wilderness of Sin and camped at Dothkah. And they departed from Dothkah and camped at Alush, and they moved from Alush and camped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. And they departed from Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai.
Okay. Now you can see just the first up to on that previous page, it says, then they went to the midst of the sea into the wilderness. Okay. So that was where they crossed the Red Sea. So it took them a few days to get there. Here again, you got to remember, 2.5 million people, moving them, trying to keep them all together and moving them. Took a little bit of doing. So just the first few days was that first part. And then it said they went 3 days' journey into the wilderness of Etham. And I remember we talked about that at the very first of Exodus. And then they went to Marah, which was also where the waters were bitter and all that. And so it's just rehearsing each one of these stops. Now, it's not every stop that they made, because they made a lot more stops, but this is a lot. I didn't even recognize that they moved this much, but they really did. Now, it says there at the very first of that, Moses wrote down the starting points of their journeys at the command of the Lord. So this is just to remind the people where they went and what they went through and everything. So that's why we have this. God told him to write these down for them. Okay, y'all ready for the next section? This is a big one. You ready to read it? No. I'll read it.
Do what?
You ready to read the next section? No. It's a long one. They moved from the wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattaavah. They moved from Kibroth Hattaavah, and you have to say them twice, the names, okay? So when you do this, and they camped at Hazeroth. Then they departed from Hazeroth and camped at Ritmah. They departed from Ritmah and camped at Rimmon Perez. They departed from Rimmon Perez and camped at Libnah. They moved from Libnah and camped at Rissa. They journeyed from Rissa and camped at Kili-Halath. Oh, that's a long one. They went from Kili-Atha and camped at Mount Shepher. They moved from Mount Shepher and camped at Harada. They moved from Harada and camped at Malakoloth. They moved from Malakoloth and camped at Tahath. They departed from Tahath and camped at Terah. They moved from Terah and camped at Mithkah. They went from Mithkah and camped at Hashmonah. They departed from Hashmonah and camped at Mozerith. They departed from Mozerith and camped at Ben Jochan. They moved from Ben Jochan and camped at Hor Haggadah. They went from Hor Haggadah and camped at Jotbahath. They moved from Jotbahath and camped at Ebrona. They departed from Ebrona and camped at Ezion-Geber. They moved from Ezion-Geber and camped in the wilderness of Zin, which is Kadesh. That's where they're at now, Kadesh, okay? Kadesh Barnea. They're real close to where they go over. They moved from Kadesh Barnea and camped at Mount Hor. That's actually where they was at, on the boundary of the land of Edom. Then Aaron the priest went to Mount Hor on the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, on the first day of the 5th month. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. So here we see that Moses was 3 years younger than Aaron, because Moses died at 120. And they both died in the same year, basically, or real close to it. Yeah. And Miriam was older than him, evidently, because I think Miriam was older than him, because you wouldn't put a 3-year-old out there to watch a kid in a basket of water.
Mary.
Yeah, she died earlier on. Let's see. Now the king of Arad, the Canaanite, who dwelt in the south in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the children of Israel. So they departed from Mount Hor and camped at Zalmonah. They departed from Zalmonah and camped at Punan. They departed from Punan and camped at Obed. They departed from Obed and camped at Abarim and at the border of Moab. They parted from Ijim and camped at Dibon Gad. They moved from Dibon Gad and camped at Almon Dibon Latham. They moved from Almon Dibolatham and camped at the mountains of Abarim before Nebo. They departed from the mountains of Abarim and camped in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth as far as the Abel Achaia Grove in the plains of Moab. So that's where they're at now. They were looking over. Jericho's going to be the first town that they conquer, and Jericho's just passed over on the Jordan. Now, next time when we come back, we're not going to start right here, I don't think. We haven't done Deuteronomy yet, I don't think. But when you start Judges, that's the first place they go. They start and they conquer Jericho.
You know, isn't it strange? You talk about a miracle. I was just thinking, you take the city of Tulsa, combined it with Oklahoma City, and then add a few more to it. That was how many people moved.
Basically, the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, right.
Basically.
Yeah.
That many people moving around across the country.
Well, just look how much land Tulsa and Oklahoma City have, and is just in those two cities. It just boggles. You know, you think, wow, man, they might have been stretched 20 miles.
Easily, I would think. You know, they setting up camp when they're starting, and the guys they're going to bed. You know, and these guys are still traveling in for another 2 or 3 hours or several hours afterwards. So I don't know how that worked, but it was a lot.
It's almost like you're the last one out from camping when everybody else is going to sleep and you still have to get there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Iris, you want to read that next one? Bottom page 3.
Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, destroy all their engraved stones, destroy all their molded images, and demolish all their high places. You shall disposes the inhabitants of the land and dwell in it, for I have given you the land to possess.
Okay. So they want them to dispose of the everything that was an idol, basically. Whether it's wood, whether it's the high places, the altars that they had, all that. He's telling them to get. They had a problem with idols. They've been with idols for 400 years in the land of Egypt. And God knew that they were going to have a problem with that. So he told Moses, and Moses told them, okay, when you do this, this is what you're going to do. When you take care of these people that you're going to get rid of, dispossess them, move them out of the way. But he didn't say that. The inhabitants, he's going to destroy them. Almost all of them, they destroyed a lot of the people. He told them, if you don't, you're going to have trouble. And we'll see that in a minute. It's not quite there yet. But because of that, because they intermarried with some of the people that were still left there, they didn't run everybody out like God said, they had problems for the rest of their lives in Israel. They still had problems, okay, with the idols and with the things that they had. Okay, you want to read the next one, Bertha?
33 of each part.
Yeah.
And you shall divide the land by lots as the inheritance among your families. To the larger you shall give a larger inheritance, and to the smaller you shall give a smaller inheritance. Everyone inheritance shall be whatever falls to him by lot. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants in the land from before you, then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be inheritance in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land where you shall dwell. Moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as though to do to them.
Okay. So he's telling them, in a way they did, the bigger tribes, okay, Judah was a big tribe, some of the other big tribes, they got more land because they had more people. That just makes sense. They needed more land. The smaller tribes didn't need as much land, so they didn't get as much. And how they go about this, we're going to have to look a little later. I don't think it tells us here, but it says by lot, they'll give them a lot. Well, I'm not sure what that means. But they go on and they see is the people, the only ones that we really know is Caleb. When he's given his land, he goes and conquers it, and takes over that land. But the others, they go and they fight for it, and then Joshua and the leaders, they decide, okay, this area will be for this people, Judah, or Benjamin, or whatever it is. They go through each one of them. But here's what it says: you got to drive everybody out.
But they did not.
They did not, and that's the problem that they had. And what he wanted to do is to get them out of the country completely, get them away. A lot of times he told them to kill them, just get rid of them, because they were an evil influence upon themselves, first of all, and then anybody around them. Sometimes that you look at that and that looks harsh, just like he told them to wipe out the Midianites and the Moabites and everything. But if they didn't do that, they would be ensnared by him.
Well, look at, again, I know we're living in a different time, but look at the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, all these people coming, we used to be a melting pot.
Right.
And in other words, we came here and we left all of our stuff that we were running from, we left it over where we left.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're bringing it all in, and we're getting all these different religions, different,
right.
And I know that, but
and they had that, but it's no longer a melting pot. As far as a melting pot, as you come in and then they all kind of merge. Right. Now they're not. They're coming in and they want to create their own little district or their own little platform or their own city or whatever you want to call it. And that's not what, we're here first. I'm sorry, you could have been here if you wanted to, but you didn't. It's one of those things. You got a place over where you came from that you could have stayed in, but you didn't. So, okay, well, a couple of short lessons tonight, but we will continue on next time.
Well, what I thought about too was that isn't it something that they followed Moses' instructions, but you